What is going on, guys? Winner Kills here, and welcome to a brand new deck profile video. Today I'm very excited to bring you guys this one because this is actually a first for the channel. Well, I guess technically not the first time this deck has ever been on the channel in a profile, but my first time showing you guys my own list for the specific deck. And what deck is that? It is Swordsoul, and it is my going second Swordsoul variant. That's right, blind second. And for those that don't know, this is actually the next deck we're going to be covering in One Deck One Month. Picked this deck up a long time ago. Haven't had a chance to ever really play it since. Now I'm finally getting that chance to do so because this deck core is pretty expensive when I got it. And it's just kind of been collecting dust the past couple months. So really want to get my money's worth out of it. And I took this deck to a locals for the first time ever the other week, and it was actually a lot funner than I thought it was going to be. And playing the deck going second was also really fun. A nice change up from how I've been playing, for the past couple months, playing Speedroid going first, etc., etc. Feels nice to be able to play a going second deck again. Takes pressure off winning Diral, which is always nice. And this deck can crack some boards like you wouldn't believe. I remember specifically blowing through an entire D board without any issue and OTKing through it. This deck is very, very explosive. So this is kind of like the pre-One Deck One Month profile. So this is the starting point, and then I'll upload a profile after One Deck One Month is over. So it can be kind of like a before and after, like how we've done in the past typically. Not going to go into too much detail here because, like I said, I am still relatively new to the deck with having only played it in a tournament setting one time. So I'll give some base level input, my basic thoughts, where I want to take the deck going forward. And if you guys have any sort of like criticisms or helpful tips or advice, feel free to put it down in the comment section below. And before we get into the profile, a reminder to you guys to check out the other ways you can support the channel in the description, either by using my discount code WinnerKills10 off at checkout at Imperium Duelist, or if you guys are shopping on the Coldest Water or TCGplayer.com, please do not forget to check out the respective affiliate links I have to their sites down in the description below. If you guys shop and check out using those links, a small bit of the revenue from your purchase will go right back into the channel and helps out a ton. So let's go ahead and get into the profile here. Now, like I said, this is a blind going second Swordsoul list. So it is going to have some other things in it that you may not see in a typical Swordsoul deck. This is something that I sort of came up with on my own with the help of a few friends. We have 3 copies of Ecclesia here. This is a card that... This is like actually probably the main reason I wanted to build the deck to go second in the first place, is to take full advantage of this card. This card has to be one of the best cards in the entire deck. Not only is it a tuner itself, but this card can become any Swordsoul that you need it to be, whether it's Mo Yi or Tai Ye, and that is really, really strong. And you can special summon it to the field while your opponent controls more monsters than you. And what's one way to ensure that happens more often than not? Then, of course, it's going to be going second. So that's why I wanted to play this as a going second build. So Ecclesia doesn't have to feel like a bricky normal summon. It can act as an extender and a starter, and is just live more often. And I feel like it gives you more opportunities to play going second. And then next up, we have 3 copies of Mo Yi. Still Mo Yi, right? Everybody knows what this card does. Reveal a Swordsoul or a Worm. And then summon the token, and then if it is sent to the graveyard as single material, draw a card. Fantastic card, great way to chain block things like Boxia and things like Chi Xiao. I love this card. Resolving this card is very, very satisfying, whether you're summoning the token or any of the Sword Souls for that matter. But the nice draw 1 when you synchro into something is very, very nice. And then essentially you play 6 copies. Technically like 9 copies if you want to count Emergence as well and Ecclesia, so plenty of ways to get to this card. Still on 3 copies of Long Yun. I feel like this is also a no-brainer. Long Yun is insane. It burns for 12 when it's sent to the graveyard for synchro material. Just burns for 1200 for some reason. Discard another Swordsoul or a Worm, special summon to the board and summon a token. Level 4 water tuner, much like Mo Yi. And importantly, while you control that token, you can only synchro summon, so don't forget that. That was something that I actually ran into while I was at the locals that I took this deck to, and didn't realize that and it kind of screwed me over. So it was a bit of a misplay on my part. There was definitely a way I could have played around it. I was kind of able to recover from it, but it definitely wasn't the most optimal thing to do. So always remember that, like if your Tenyi or your Mo Yi gets Ghost Ogre and you have the token on board, it hurts a lot and you need an extender because while that token's up, right, you can only synchro summon. So yeah, we have 2 Swordsoul of Tenyi. This card is really clutch for the grind game. You know, same thing like Long Yun and Mo Yi. This card will summon a token, level 4 tuner water, but this time you need to banish a worm or a Swordsoul card from your graveyard. And importantly, that is not on summon, and it banishes for cost. So this card is really cool because it can dodge interruptions like Imperm, Chalice, etc. Or Effect Veiler, right? If you normal summon Tenyi, right, doesn't do anything on summon, but let's say you have Swordsoul Blackout engraved, you can activate Tenyi to banish the Blackout as cost if they Veiler. You don't get the token from Tenyi, but you still get the token from Blackout. So this card can actually be really, really strong in some instances to play through hand traps or just generate you extra advantage. And again, it's a very good late game card because it banishes from grave, and more often than not, later into the game, you're going to have more cards in the grave. Now, if the title hasn't already told you guys, this is a Swordsoul Tenyi deck, so we are playing a Tenyi lineup, and I'll just post all of them here. We have 3 copies of Vishuddha, 3 copies of Ashina, and 2 copies of Adhara. I think this is a pretty standard ratio for the time being. Vishuddha is insane. If you control no effect monster, you can summon from the hand. Same summoning condition for all of the Tenyis. Vishuddha can actually banish itself from the hand or grave while you control a face-up non-effect monster to target a card your opponent controls and return it to the hand. So insane removal going second. And again, another reason why I wanted to play this deck going second is so I could take advantage of this card because it's in-engine, good spot removal that works really well going second. Ashina also really good, same summoning condition. But its banish effect where you control a non-effect monster is to summon a Tenyi from the deck. So a lot of times you can spec out Adhara, which acts as a level 1 tuner. Well, it doesn't act, it is a level 1 tuner, so you can help to synchro 8 for things like Boxia, Berserker, or Chi Zhao. Yes, you're worm locked, but you still get to, you know, access your engine or put up really big, strong synchros. And then Adhara's banish effect is to add back a banished worm, except this card. So you can't banish Adhara to add back the same Adhara you just banished. You can add back a different copy of Adhara, but it allows you to recycle things that you banished off of maybe Chi Zhao or your Tenyi, get them back to your hand, you know, grab back your Mo Yis, your Long Yuns, etc., etc. So that is the Tenyi package, pretty standard. And then for our hand traps, we have the Gamma package here, the Cyframe package, whatever you want to call it. Very high impact card. It's a good way to help protect things like Long Yun. It also helps protect Emergence. And some of the other board breaking cards we are playing in this list, and of course we're playing board breakers, just because again we are going second. And this also doubles as an E-Telly target. Driver low-key can be an extender because he can be linked into Monk, and you can also use your Tenyis while he is on the field because he is a non-effect monster. So it's kind of that double utility that we really like in deck building. 1 Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. This card is seeing a lot of play right now. I'm currently experimenting with 1. I might go up 2 more right now. It's just a matter of space, though, in the main deck since we have gone over 40 cards. Then we have 1 Deskbot 001 because we are playing that nice little Hulk Roarodon package, which gives this deck a lot of room to push. That's it for the monster lineup there. Yeah, as you guys can see, you know, pretty big engine. And then, you know, some going second cards. Technically just 4 hand traps there, but I'm playing more hand traps in other parts of the build, and I'm playing also going second cards because again we are a going second build. But yeah, that's the monster lineup. Now we're gonna go ahead and jump into the spells here, where we have 3 copies of Forbidden Droplet. This card right now, kind of not too sure on. This might become Forbidden Chalice a little bit later on, because dealing with Token Collector, of course, is a major problem for this deck, and Chalice is a great way to out it. Forbidden Droplet, of course, can out it, but, you know, you have to pitch resources from hand, which sometimes isn't always optimal. Yes, I don't really like that sometimes. And also, a lot of the times, to go against certain boards, you do have to pitch a lot of cards. Yeah, I don't know. I might go with Chalice, just because also Chalice is not a once per turn either. And it's a little bit more impactful if you draw Chalice going first. Yes, if you drop it going first, it can be kind of set as a trap, but you have to send off other cards you have that you might not necessarily want to get rid of, or cards in your hand that you might otherwise use as follow-up. So I don't know if Droplet's 100% the move right now for me, but I am playing it right now. I'm going to continue to test it to see if I like it. But if anything, this might change to Chalice, which is really good news for budget players and everything, because obviously Droplet is absurdly expensive. Next up, we have 3 copies of the Emergency Teleport. Shout out to my brother for letting me borrow these beautiful ultimate rares. Couldn't play these in Speedroid because I just don't think that engine's that great in there, but it works out really well here in Swordsoul, mainly because we can spec out things like Ghost Ogre and Psyframe Gear Gamma to be able to help extend our plays. A lot of people think this deck currently, well, maybe in the past, that, Imperm on Moyi or Tenyi was a pretty much, a turn ender, and let's be honest, it still can be sometimes depending on the hand, but having E-Tele in the hand to continue follow up to go into Hulk, then into Auroradon, which gets you Deskbot, which gets you Yazi, which gets you Tenyi or Moyi, whichever you haven't used yet, right? To still allow you to continue to get into your engine and generate resources and crack boards is really insane. And E-Tele is also not a once per turn. So you can spec out a Gamma, go into Hulk with that, and then you can spec out Ghost Ogre later to go into Baron if you have a level 7 Tenyi on the field, which is very, very easy to do. And it can also just act as an interruption too, right? Let's say you're going first, you can set an E-Tele and summon out a Ghost Ogre, and your opponent has to worry about the pop from Ghost Ogre as they try to go about their combo. Next up, we have 3 copies of Lightning Storm. Again, just more generic board breaking material here. If you open up Lightning Storm with Droplet, really good 2-card combo to crack boards. Gives you a nice little advantage against back row heavy decks as well. Not too much to be said there. Then we play 3 copies of Emergence because Rhoda's pretty good, I heard. And then we also have 1 copy of Sacred Summit, basically an in-theme monster born. And this is something I'm not too sure of. The only reason I don't want to cut this because I feel like there are going to be some situations where I'm going to go to search this as a newer player, right? And I'm going to want that monster reborn available to me in the deck. So I probably could play without this. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I don't know if it's currently, mainstream practice to not play this card. But I'm going to continue to play it for now just because it's good recovery and it is searchable as well. Then into the traps here, we have 3 copies of Imperm and 1 copy of Swordsoul Blackout. Yeah, I only wanted to play 1 Blackout just because it does brick and we are going second. But this card is still very important in those hands where, we do, not end on the best board, right? And we're not able to OTK. We kind of want to have something to be able to set up, right? If we can't fully crack the board in OTK, we want to have something for their next turn. So that is the entire main deck. I believe that is 42 cards. I should be correct on that. I believe it is 42. So now we're going to go ahead and go into the extra deck here. We have 2 copies of Monk of the Tenyi. This is a card that I don't think I would play any less than 2. Ideally, I would play 3. Because there have been some times where I kind of wish I had a 3rd, but in those instances, I was actually able to recycle a Monk with Edhara, and it didn't really make a difference because, again, they are recyclable with the help of Edhara. So we have 2 copies of Monk, because a lot of times you're going to summon out your Tenyis, and you're not going to have a way to get a non-effect monster on field without this, so just being able to link off the Tenyis into this is really, really strong. It helps your engine work. We have 1 Shaman of the Tenyi. This card is really great. I've used this card a lot. Sometimes you can just take 2 random worm extenders that you might have, like if you have a Tenyi on board, or any Swordsoul monster that you weren't able to synchro with, or whatever it may be, right? You can just go into Shaman late game, or even mid combo and revive things back like Chijiao, or Boxia, or things like Berserker, and continue to push, which is really, really nice. So like the Shaman a lot. It also has a nice battle phase effect too, where it says if a attack is declared involving a face-up non-effect monster, you can target a card your opponent controls and destroy it. That's really cool too against Eldritch. If they'd attack with one of their trap cards, you can blow up a card. That actually came up against an Eldritch player. Probably won't come up that often, just because if you're playing against an Eldritch player that knows what this card does, they're not going to go ahead and actually just run into it. It just happened to came up by chance for me, but it technically could, right? It technically could, or even against like the Brave deck, right? Or the base deck, if they attack with a token and this is up and they forget about it, you can actually just go ahead and try to pop something. So it does act as a nice defensive card. We do have Halka, pretty standard, you know, summon out your Despot, do your combos. And then for our synchros here, we have one copy of Yazi, mainly going to be going into this card with the help of the Auroradon engine, you know, Despot and 2 tokens for 7, and then you can go Yazi, pop itself in something on their board, summon out a Tenyi, and keep going into like a Boxia for more removal, because you'll have the wind and the water, so you can spin 2, or you can go into a Chijiao to add and then dump, right, whatever you want to do, because like, you can dump like Adhara, add Longyun, Adhara, add back, and then spec Longyun with the card, pitching the card you added back off the Adhara, so nice little combos you can do there. Then we have 2 copies of Baxia, Brightness of the Yangzing. This card is insane. The locals I took this deck to, I had so much fun summoning this card and just using it for mass removal. And not only is it just mass removal sometimes, it's Monster Reborn by destroying a card you control to revive a level 4 or lower in the grave. And that helps out a lot. Sometimes you can bring back like Tenyi or Mo Yi that have been chilling in the graveyard that you haven't had a chance to use that turn. Or you can bring back Adhara, which is a tuner, which is great. Or you can bring back things like Ghost Ogre, which helps as a level 3 tuner for Baron access, right? A lot of cool things you can do with this card. And I like playing 2 because the second one did come up a lot. And oftentimes I would just like feel myself making this card more often than Chijiao, just because like, again, we're going second. So setting up Chijiao isn't super important a lot of the time. Yeah, so I actually might even cut Chijiao to 1 at some point. I don't know. We have 1 Draco Berserker. This card is an absolute house. Sometimes this is a really strong interruption against certain decks. Anytime your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, we can banish it. So like if you're playing against Eldritch, for example, you can summon this card, and if they use Golden Lord at any point, you can chain, banish Golden Lord, and you deal with that problem immediately. Yeah, really strong card. And if it attacks something, it can gain the attack of whatever it attacked and destroyed. And then it can make another attack on monsters that turn as well. So it can help pile on damage too. Then we have 2 copies of Chijiao, the Swordsoul Grandmaster. If this card is synchro summon, you can actually add to your hand or banish 1 Swordsoul card from your deck. So yeah, that's actually something I just realized it could do just now. I thought this card always added, but apparently you can banish Swordsoul cards from your deck too. So you can go ahead and banish like Blackout directly from the deck and get a free token there as well, which is kind of cool. Yeah. I honestly didn't know that. You learn something new every day, right? And I am new to the deck, so not surprising. But it does have another effect where a quick effect, you can banish a Swordsoul or Worm Monster, Swordsoul card or Worm Monster from your grave or hand, which is important. Keep that in mind. So if you don't have a graveyard, you can still banish from hand to negate something. Yeah, just target a monster face up in the field and negate its effects. And you can only use 1 effect of Chijiao once per turn. So if you summon it to search, you can't use the negate effect that turn, so keep that in mind. But yeah, really, really solid card. Then I play 1 Ruddy Rose Dragon. Being able to banish the graveyard of any deck is really strong, like Sky Striker, Phantom Knight, even like the base deck or DDD, getting rid of their follow-up, right? Clearing the graveyard sometimes is just absolutely like a game-ending thing to do. But also sometimes it's really not that impactful. It really depends on the game state. So I don't know if it'll stay within the deck. Then I play 1 Swordsoul Supreme Sovereign Chenying. This card is an absolute house. For each banished card, this card gains 100 attack and defense, and monsters your opponent control lose 100 attack and defense. If this card would be destroyed by card effect, you can banish a card from your graveyard instead, and keep in mind that's any card. And if a card or cards is banished, except during the damage step, you can banish 1 card from both your opponent's field and graveyard. Talk about really good removal on top of a 3k body, right? There's some ways you can trigger this too on your own. You can like use Chijiao to negate something. That'll trigger Chenying, or if you use a Vishuda Engraved to banish to bounce something, that'll trigger this as well. You could even side deck cards like Different Dimension Ground, so anytime they do something, you have the opportunity to go ahead and trigger Chenying as well. And again, some decks, they're not going to be able to deal with that double banish, and also the fact that it is a very hard to deal with card in the first place is just going to make it very difficult. Then next up, this is kind of like a flex spot as well. There definitely is some room for some other cards in here that I kind of want to try playing. One was Herald of the Arclight, and the other was Chao Fang. So this could be cut for something, but I really do like this card for one reason, especially in a going second build. A lot of times you can get close to OTKing, but if you make this card, you pretty much guarantee game anyways because of its burn effect. If you can get them to 1200 or lower and you can end on this card, like I said, the game is pretty much over. If you sync or summon another worm monster while this monster's on the field, you can draw a card. So this paired with like synchroing into Chi with a Moyi allows you to draw 2 cards, which is really nice. So it helps you kind of get back into the game resource-wise, which is important because sometimes this deck does lack recovery, I've noticed. It says if your opponent special summons a monster or monsters, except during the damage step, you can banish one of those monsters or monsters, and if you do, inflict 1200 damage to your opponent. When your opponent activates a spell or trap card or effect, quick effect, you can banish that card, and if you do, inflict 1200 damage to your opponent. You can only use each effect of Swordsoul's Sinister Sovereign, Longyun, Qijing Longyun. I hope I'm not butchering that up, but I probably am though. But either way, it just burns 1200 anytime your opponent really does anything. If they summon, you can banish the monster, burn for 12, activate a spell or trap, or effect, banish it, burn for 12. So if you leave them really low on life, you're like I said, not able to complete the OTK, ending on this card sometimes can just be super, super clutch. That actually came up in testing, I think 1 or 2 times, where I wasn't able to OTK, but ending on the Sinister Sovereign just was GG's anyways. Kind of reminds me of like Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon. You make that against some decks, and you know every time they do something, they burn 5, puts them on a bit of a clock, and they need a direct way to out it, or else they just can't play. Then last but not least, 1 Bloomin' Baronin, 1 Baron de Fleur. Yeah, we can make this card so absurdly easy in this deck with the help of Longyun, and we can get this card out on our 3rd summon. That'll play around things like Nibiru and other high-impact hand traps. And its secondary effect can pretty much bring back anything in the deck that is, you know, in our extra deck, except for the level 10 guys, obviously, which is really, really cool. Can bring back Moyis, can bring back Taiyes. So if they don't clear that, it can be a really big threat on your following turn because it gives you a ton of follow-up. I figured I'd throw this in here as well, since this is going to be like my competitive deck for the next month. I'll show you guys what my side deck currently looks like. Again, this is kind of tailored to my locals, so take it with a grain of salt, if you will. We have 3 copies of Artifact Lancia, because this card just ends up being pretty decent against a lot of decks. Mainly things like Phantom Knight. This card really, really helps out a ton. And other rogue matchups as well, like Dino and Invoke that happen to be running around at our locals too. 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird. Really strong Floodgate card to be able to side in as well. 3 Cosmic Cyclone. I kind of wish this was Twin Twister, but also dealing with Eldritch variants is always going to be kind of annoying. And, you know, we do always have a little bit of Eldritch floating around at our locals. Out to Mystic Mine, right? Although I've thought about actually siding Mystic Mine in this deck, but, you know, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, this is just good removal all around. Like I said, it might, if anything, become Twin Twister, just because more back removal is nice. And TC Boo, no surprise, hurts this deck. If it's a deck that I like, TC Boo ends up hurting it. So I just want to make sure I come strapped with the back row hate. We got the Lightning Storms in the main deck, and we've also got Cosmic in the side. And then we also have Red Reboot as well for more back row hate. Card's insane. I actually I played an Eldritch deck at the first locals I took this to like a week or so ago, and saw this game 2 and 3, and needless to say, it won me the game. And the cool thing is, like, you can reboot your opponent, and then with the help of things like Vashuda and Boxia, like, you can just clear a lot of the back row to begin with, which is really strong. And then lastly, for the side deck, we do have some dedicated going first cards. In that of the 2 Anti-Spell Fragrance and 3 copies of Solemn Judgment. Still swear by this card in the side deck. Absolutely insane. Stopping board breaking cards, and that's mainly the purpose of all of these cards here. If you Judgment a Forbidden Droplet, pretty much GG, like extend the handshake. They just like discarded 2 or 3 cards, only for it to get hit with a Judgment. Not many people are going to be preemptively pitching a trap, especially against a going second deck, right? And then Anti-Spell is also just really strong. Very good against pretty much like anything with the Brave engine. Also really strong against DDD because, you know, they need those scales, and Anti-Spell says no. And sometimes even like siding this in, going second against back row decks is really strong because, like, sometimes, you know, the reboot, and the cosmics might just not be enough, right? So having something like Judgment going second, even like if you can't go first, still having access to Judgment is great, because you can just literally stop any of their powerful cards in their deck, because Judgment is just so OP. But yeah, that's gonna do it for the profile. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to let me know down in the comment section below. I know I filmed this one a little bit differently, and yeah, let me know how you guys like it. Different than like the normal profile that I've been doing, kind of going back to more old school, I guess, classic style of recording for profiles. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Appreciate any feedback. Hope you guys are having a great day. And if you want to see more of my content, check out one of the videos popping up on the bottom of the screen right now. And as always, winner kills signing out. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. And last but not least, a huge shout out goes to our Divine level channel members, and they are Tweeter0226, Pony Start, Cadillacs84, Keith Sigers, and Black Ninja Money. Thank you guys so much as always for extremely kind and generous support of the channel.